still there. We remove like the basement, and I'm gonna make a ton of money. So it's still good. You know, like Andrei fixed it.
But did you fix it?
How is the house in this condition after 2 years?
Well, the Russian company that was providing construction materials is holding our money, and it's folded.
No way that I can live here after this. There's no way. This is my husband in this environment. I don't want it. I don't want this.
Andrei didn't lose money. He lost control. And now, Elizabeth might lose everything else. That's the part people missed. Not the $1 million financial hit itself, but what came after, and why it flipped their entire reality upside down. No screaming match, no tell-all fight, no breaking point on camera, just silence, distance, and a slow, private unraveling that's been hiding in plain sight. Welcome to TLC Drama Live. I'm Sabrina, and if you think this was just another 90-day storyline that fizzled out, buckle up, hit subscribe, drop your take in the comments, and stay with me, because what's coming next breaks the rules of reality TV and the relationship that was supposed to survive it all. You've seen the Instagram stories, the vacation photos, the polished couple selfies with the kids, and if you scrolled past thinking, wow, they made it, you weren't alone. But now, multiple insiders say it was all a performance. Not for fans, not for family, but for survival. Behind those filtered snapshots was a collapse that neither of them could control. And the most dangerous part? They didn't tell anyone. They didn't ask for help. They just turned the volume down on their lives, kept posting like nothing happened, and hoped the silence would be enough to hold it all together. But the silence was the loudest red flag of all. According to people close to production, Elizabeth and Andrei had already started drifting apart months before their social media even hinted at tension. The $1 million loss wasn't a punchline or tabloid rumor. It happened. And it didn't come from fraud, theft, or gambling. It came from something even more personal: overconfidence, risky investments, bad timing, and a mutual decision that turned into a cold war the minute the numbers tanked. Allegedly, Andrei was the one making the moves. But the real bombshell? Elizabeth didn't just know about it. Insiders claim she supported the plan. At first. But when the money was gone, the narrative changed, and Elizabeth began rewriting history in real time. Suddenly, it wasn't "we invested," it was "you ruined us." The distance between them didn't start with the loss. It started with the blame. Andrei, who's always been portrayed as hard-headed and prideful, reportedly refused to admit defeat. He shut down, emotionally and physically. Elizabeth, used to having a say in everything from production to parenting, now found herself locked out of decisions and locked inside a marriage that felt like a transaction. Meanwhile, fans kept asking why their scenes felt colder, why the energy between them seemed muted, why Elizabeth avoided certain topics on camera, and why Andrei, who used to argue with everyone, was suddenly checked out. The answer wasn't editing. It was real. And it wasn't just about their relationship, it was about their image. Because even after everything, they still had one thing left to protect: TLC. For years, that platform had been their safety net. The income. The exposure. The only thing keeping their public lives afloat while their private lives drowned. But now, sources say even that's at risk. According to multiple production-adjacent leaks, Elizabeth has quietly been pulling away from the show. She's allegedly been skipping key meetings, pushing back against storylines, and refusing to film certain scenes that could have exposed the cracks in their marriage. On paper, it looks like she's done with reality TV. But off the record, it might not be her choice. Andrei, for his part, reportedly clashed with TLC producers multiple times. Over edits, over filming expectations, over the narrative itself. Some insiders claim he accused the network of trying to set him up as the bad guy again. Others say he threatened to walk mid-season. But what's clear is that the trust between the couple and the crew is gone. And now TLC might be the one doing the walking. Insiders believe Elizabeth could face a quiet, unofficial ban from the franchise. Not because of drama, but because of silence. Her refusal to engage with the show's demands reportedly left producers with no choice but to shelve future plans for her storyline. No contract termination, no statement, just a slow fade to black, both on camera and off. And that silence? It's still happening. Neither Elizabeth nor Andrei has said a word publicly about the financial collapse, the production fallout, or the rumors of separation. Their posts stay cheerful. Their comments stay off. But fans are already connecting the dots. Because when a couple who built their entire brand on being unfiltered suddenly stops talking, something's broken. And it's not their phones. Coming up, what Andrei did after the loss, how Elizabeth's family got involved behind the scenes, and why the next move might not be divorce, but exposure. Their feed never changed. That was the most chilling part. No messy captions, no angry unfollows, no breakup posts. Just the same bright smiles, well-lit selfies, and couple content that gave off curated peace. But when you looked closer, it stopped adding up. The lighting stayed perfect. The energy didn't. Fans had followed Elizabeth and Andrei long enough to sense when something was off. And somewhere between the baby milestones and those generic couple shots in front of rented Airbnbs, the shift was already happening. The warmth was gone. And the people who knew them best, viewers, were the first to feel it. Start with the timeline. The posts got less personal. The captions turned vague. For a couple who used to post in paragraphs, suddenly there were only emojis. Or worse, nothing. Elizabeth stopped tagging Andrei in posts where she used to mention him. Andrei, who once flooded his feed with gym pics and dad updates, went quiet for weeks at a time. No new videos, no behind-the-scenes content. Even birthday messages for each other felt forced. Generic, copy-paste energy. Something was cracking under the surface. And fans started asking, why does it all feel like someone's trying to prove something, not share something? That's when people began putting pieces together. The smiles were tighter. The distance between them, in photos, wider. Some pictures had one of them cropped oddly, like someone else had been removed. Others were clearly old, reposted as if time had frozen. One follower noticed Elizabeth reusing an outfit from a vacation they took nearly a year before, but claiming it was this weekend. Another pointed out how Andrei's usual Sunday family time captions disappeared right when filming was supposed to resume. If you weren't looking closely, you'd scroll right past it. But if you were paying attention, it felt like someone trying too hard to control the story. Then came the comments, or the lack of them. Elizabeth turned hers off during the exact period insiders now say things started falling apart behind the scenes. No interaction, no replies, no chance for anyone to even ask what was happening. Andrei, meanwhile, left his on, but didn't respond to anything. Even messages from longtime supporters. And that silence spoke volumes. Not because it was loud, but because it was calculated. When couples in crisis go silent, it's rarely by accident. It's strategy. It's damage control. Especially when your entire image is built on being real and raw. Elizabeth and Andrei didn't owe fans a breakdown post. But what they offered instead was a fantasy. One that actively covered up the collapse. One that sold peace while they were privately unraveling over money, power, and trust. And the longer it went on, the more obvious it became that something behind the screen was completely broken. Because once fans picked up on the patterns, it didn't stop at captions. Viewers started cross-checking social media posts with public filming schedules. And guess what? The timing didn't align. Their at-home pictures were posted while they were allegedly filming abroad. Their together updates were shared while insiders claimed they were living apart. Even family birthdays were strangely quiet. No party videos, no sibling photos, nothing. For a family that built a storyline around being chaotic but close, the total blackout felt suspicious. Too clean. Too corporate. And then came the DMs. Fans started leaking screenshots of unanswered messages, awkward heart reactions, and unfollow-refollow games that made it clear the couple wasn't just going quiet. They were being watched, monitored, or maybe monitoring each other. Either way, the love they used to brag about wasn't showing up where it used to matter most, where fans built their connection with them. Up next, how the pressure to keep up appearances made Elizabeth snap behind the scenes, and why that emotional fallout started turning even their closest friends into strangers. The number kept climbing, but not the way they expected. Every hour, the losses deepened. By the time Andrei stopped checking, it was already too late. Insiders say the bulk of that $1 million hit happened in less than a week because Andrei wasn't just dabbling. He went all in. Risky trades, high leverage, fast-moving markets. He thought he was building a future. What he built was the start of their collapse. And Elizabeth? According to people close to them, she knew what he was doing. Not only that, she supported it. At first, the timeline tracks. Around the same time Elizabeth and Andrei disappeared from socials for over 3 weeks last fall, sources say Andrei was scrambling behind the scenes trying to recover the account. It wasn't some burner portfolio or passive side hustle. It was their main source of future savings, invested aggressively under Andrei's control, but allegedly after conversations where Elizabeth gave her full approval. They thought they were being smart, strategic, until the numbers reversed and everything they'd been betting on turned into smoke. At first, the tension was silent. No shouting, no slammed doors. But something changed. Insiders say Elizabeth withdrew, quietly, fast. She stopped engaging in financial conversations. She allegedly stopped showing up to the meetings with their advisor. And the worst part? She started acting like it was never her idea. That's when the emotional spiral began. Because when money disappears, the blame doesn't just land on bank accounts. It lands on people. Andrei, already feeling like the villain from years of TLC edits, reportedly took the defensive route. He didn't want to admit failure. He minimized the loss to friends. But at home, things were different. That's where the resentment started boiling. Elizabeth, allegedly consumed with anxiety over their children's security, started framing the decision as reckless. She wanted safety, predictability, and instead, she got risk, exposure, and now instability. She allegedly told a close friend she felt like she had no say anymore. But that friend, according to insiders, pushed back. Because Elizabeth did have a say, until it went bad. That fracture didn't stay confined to finances. It spilled into everything else. Filming decisions, parenting styles, extended family communication. Elizabeth reportedly stopped consulting Andrei on anything. From dinner plans to production offers, she started acting like a single parent with a silent partner. Andrei, for his part, doubled down on control. He allegedly became more demanding, more irritable, more territorial over what was left, emotionally and financially. They weren't collaborating. They were calculating. Every conversation became a setup for a future argument. And this was happening while their fans were still rooting for them, while TLC was still building their segment arcs around family strength. No one outside knew that the real storyline was falling apart, that the scripts didn't match reality anymore, that the couple wasn't even speaking directly half the time, only through texts, production, or silence. Next, how Elizabeth's quiet shift from co-strategist to quiet critic made Andrei feel betrayed, and why even TLC couldn't stop what came after. Elizabeth wasn't screaming. She wasn't threatening to leave. She was simply surviving. And according to insiders, she was doing it alone. One friend claims Elizabeth privately said she felt like a tenant in her own marriage, walking on eggshells in a house that used to feel like hers. Not because of violence, not because of cheating, but because the emotional warmth was gone. And all that was left was control. Andrei allegedly turned cold, rigid, unapproachable. And Elizabeth stopped pushing back. She just started disappearing, one room at a time. It wasn't long before TLC noticed. A shift in tone, in footage, in chemistry. Producers were reportedly caught off guard by how little they were getting from the couple. Scenes that used to pop with tension or charm suddenly felt forced. Elizabeth allegedly became stiff on camera, filtering everything she said, often looking to crew members for off-screen cues. Andrei, usually outspoken, reportedly began cutting scenes short. More than one source claims he walked off set mid-filming at least twice during their last shoot. When that footage hit the edit room, the change was undeniable. The couple's energy was flat, detached, cold. And that's when TLC started making changes. Quietly, but urgently. The crew was shifted. Editors were instructed to reduce tension-heavy scenes. Elizabeth allegedly asked for multiple re-edits of footage involving her and Andrei. Not for vanity reasons, but to strip out moments she said made her look like she wasn't even there. She wasn't wrong. According to one insider, she barely reacted in key scenes that were meant to show family bonding. TLC allegedly shortened or scrapped full segments after realizing they couldn't build a cohesive story. And when production has to rewrite your narrative mid-season, something behind the scenes is broken beyond repair. Back at home, the signs were everywhere. Family visits started getting canceled. Elizabeth's relatives, who were once central to their drama arcs, stopped appearing altogether. Insiders say it wasn't just scheduling, it was tension. Calls reportedly went unanswered. Invitations were quietly declined. And the kids? They weren't exempt either. Sources close to the couple say the children's routines changed. Fewer shared activities, fewer public outings, more time apart. Even their usual family day photos stopped being posted or looked staged when they were. For a family built on visibility, the silence became impossible to ignore. Andrei, meanwhile, allegedly told friends he was tired of being blamed for everything that goes wrong. But those same friends noticed something too. He was no longer defending Elizabeth the way he used to. No more "we're strong together" posts. No more "people don't know our truth" comments. Just silence. And that silence turned Elizabeth inward. Not defeated, just distant. Done with performing. Coming up, how TLC started cutting them out of future plans, and why Elizabeth's quiet withdrawal may have triggered something much bigger than a breakup. Behind the scenes, TLC was already moving on. No press release. No farewell montage, just a quiet freeze-out that insiders say began the moment producers realized Elizabeth wasn't playing ball anymore. During filming, her behavior reportedly shifted so drastically that the crew stopped planning full scenes around her. One source said she became unavailable without notice, often skipping call times, showing up late, or requesting last-minute location changes. But what shook the crew most wasn't the schedule chaos. It was how Elizabeth spoke, carefully, like she was being recorded off camera too. She didn't trust anyone. Not production. Not Andrei. Not even the edit. TLC thrives on cast members who give access, who let the cameras into the arguments, the chaos, the moments people wish they could hide. But Elizabeth, according to multiple insiders, was now hiding everything. When asked about the $1 million loss, she allegedly deflected, or demanded it be cut. When scenes got too close to the emotional fallout, she'd go quiet or freeze entirely. Editors said they couldn't stitch a coherent story anymore, because Elizabeth stopped giving reactions. No commentary. No connection. Just blank stares and monotone nods. And in reality TV, that's death. Andrei, for his part, didn't go silent. He went rogue. Sources say he started calling out production directly, accusing them of twisting narratives, baiting scenes, and trying to villainize him all over again. He reportedly confronted a producer mid-shoot about a line he claimed was edited out of context. Another crew member said he argued over footage from a confessional that never aired, insisting it made him look weak and reckless. But behind those accusations was something deeper. Panic. Andrei allegedly felt the show slipping away, and when he realized TLC wasn't pushing back, that's when he started spiraling. Production insiders say conversations shifted from how do we save this couple story to how do we get them off the screen without backlash? Elizabeth had already emotionally exited. Andrei was becoming harder to direct, and together, they were no longer delivering the content that kept audiences hooked. One source even said, we couldn't get 1 solid hour from them by the end. Not without cutting around everything. That's when the quiet ice out began. First, less screen time. Then, reassigning crews. Finally, internal meetings about how to pivot future storylines without them. Not because of scandal, but because they stopped being useful. TLC didn't need to fire them. They just needed to stop writing them in. And according to 2 separate leaks, that's exactly what happened. The next season outline didn't include Elizabeth or Andrei at all. Not even as background characters in other arcs. They were phased out without a word. Up next, how the financial crash and filming freeze pushed Elizabeth into full retreat, and why her next move might have already ended Andrei's shot at recovery. The lifestyle they flaunted online was never built to survive without that show money. And once that $1 million vanished, the cracks weren't just emotional. They were financial, brutal, and immediate. The house? Refinanced. The car? Sold. And the brand deals they once relied on to fill the gaps? Gone. Without the TLC platform behind them, nobody wanted to touch their name. Sponsors backed off, collaborations dried up, and suddenly, the couple who once branded themselves as reality TV royalty were living more like a struggling sidecast, trying to stay relevant. Elizabeth, according to insiders, didn't just feel the pressure, she moved around it. Quietly, privately, Andrei allegedly discovered that she'd started running her side income, brand deals, online appearances, even small influencer payments through separate channels. Nothing illegal, nothing scandalous, but definitely secretive. And when he confronted her, insiders say she flipped the script. Told him she was doing what she had to do to protect her children, that she couldn't rely on someone who made decisions that put their family's future in jeopardy. But Andrei didn't see that as strength. He saw it as betrayal. He allegedly told friends he felt used, that Elizabeth stood by him when the investments looked good, and the moment they didn't, she pulled the rug out. One source said Andrei believed Elizabeth was setting up her own exit plan, not from the marriage, but from the image. The one where they were still a team, still on the same side, still a package deal. But that image was already crumbling. And Elizabeth wasn't interested in repairing it. The power dynamic flipped fast. Elizabeth took control of the finances, the kids' schedules, and even how much they shared with production. Andrei, once loud and confrontational, reportedly became reactive, withdrawn, bitter. Not just about the money, but about the narrative he couldn't control anymore. Friends say he was frustrated that Elizabeth had gone from partner to protector of her own brand, that every move she made felt like a solo decision with public optics in mind. And what was left? A house that didn't feel like a home. A marriage that had turned into a silent contract. A business partnership that was bleeding out with no one left to fund it. There were no joint meetings with financial advisors anymore. No public events as a couple. No shared social media strategy. It was divide, isolate, preserve. Elizabeth started quietly reaching out to people she hadn't spoken to in years. Former contacts in media. Networking calls she used to ignore. One insider claimed she even floated the idea of rebranding privately, without Andrei. Not as a single mom. Not as a reality star. But as something else. Something she didn't have to share. Next, how Elizabeth's quiet power shift forced Andrei to make one final move, and why the fallout may cost them both more than money. Elizabeth's family had been quiet for a while. Too quiet. After years of clashing with Andrei on screen, they had pulled back. No more explosive dinner scenes. No more dramatic in-laws versus husband showdowns. Viewers thought it was peace. What it was, insiders say, was avoidance. But once the financial rumors started leaking and Elizabeth stopped returning calls from production, her family stepped back in. This time, not for cameras. For her. According to two people close to the situation, Elizabeth's mom and sister were the first to notice how withdrawn she had become. She wasn't venting. She wasn't defending Andrei. She wasn't even making excuses. She just stopped talking. They reportedly described her as checked out, and not in the usual reality TV burnout way. In the real life, staring at the wall, short replies, avoiding everyone way. And when the silence stretched on for weeks, her family started asking harder questions. They wanted to know what was really going on inside the house, why Elizabeth wasn't reaching out, why family events were being skipped, why the grandkids weren't coming around. One source said her mom flat out asked, "Are you scared of him?" And Elizabeth didn't answer. Not yes, not no. Just silence. And that silence was enough to make the entire family push back in. What happened next made Andrei feel surrounded and ready to explode. Because it didn't stop with questions. Her sister allegedly started texting Andrei directly, asking about bills and plans and how they were managing childcare now that TLC filming had stopped. Her brother-in-law reportedly reached out with a veiled offer to help with the move if needed. These weren't threats, but Andrei saw them as an ambush. Insiders claim he believed Elizabeth's family was laying the groundwork to separate her financially, logistically, and emotionally from him. Andrei was never good at hiding his resentment. Even during the early seasons, his reactions were fast, blunt, and pride-driven. But this time, he didn't yell. He shut down, refused to show up to a scheduled family lunch that production had wanted to film. Allegedly, told producers, "They're not getting another clip of me looking like the bad guy." And then, he went dark too. No replies. No confirmations. TLC staff said they couldn't reach either of them for a full week. Elizabeth stopped answering her field producer. Andrei stopped sending footage. The show had nothing. The family's presence only grew. Elizabeth's mom reportedly helped her move important documents to a friend's house. Her sister started doing school pickups. And insiders say Andrei saw every single move as proof that he was being erased from his own life. Not legally, not publicly, but day by day, task by task. And it pushed him to the edge. One source claimed Andrei asked a mutual friend whether Elizabeth was setting him up to be the villain one more time before she walks. Not out of fear, out of strategy. He allegedly believes she's using the family to insulate herself from backlash when the story goes public. And if that's true, he may have a point. Because while Elizabeth isn't talking on camera, she's allegedly talking off it. To lawyers, to financial advisors, to close friends who don't have loyalty to TLC but do have experience with asset division. Andrei knows the signs. And this time, the story might not end in a tell-all. It might end with him being the one who walks first. Not because he wants to, but because staying means surrendering control completely. Coming up, how TLC's final call sealed the couple's fate, and why Andrei's last chance to repair his image may have already slipped through his fingers. They were once one of TLC's most profitable couples. High conflict, thick accents, messy family drama, everything reality producers dream of. Elizabeth and Andrei weren't background noise. They were front and center, carrying entire season arcs with their fights, their wedding drama, and that signature dynamic where no one ever backed down. But now, it's over. Not with a send-off, not with closure, but with silence. And insiders say it's not just mutual burnout, it's rejection. TLC doesn't want them back. The production shift wasn't sudden. It built quietly over time. When Season 9 casting talks started internally, their names reportedly weren't even on the early draft boards. Not because they officially quit, but because no one wanted to fight to keep them. Multiple crew members say the phrase "too difficult to film" started showing up on scheduling notes. That's code for not worth the drama. When your storyline turns into dead air and production walks on eggshells to get even a few usable scenes, you're no longer a storyline. You're a liability. And that's what Elizabeth and Andrei had become. Not explosive, not scandalous, just emotionally vacant. Checked out. Unreliable. And worst of all, boring. Viewers don't stick around for silence, and TLC knows it. No one watches a reality show to see a couple scroll silently through their phones, which is reportedly what some of the footage actually showed. Andrei giving short answers, Elizabeth barely reacting. The spark, the heat, the edge that made them famous, it's gone. But what's even more painful is what it cost them behind the camera. Because while they were busy protecting their image, they lost their platform. And in trying to preserve their privacy, they lost their income. They weren't fired, but they were frozen out. TLC allegedly stopped reaching out. Producers moved on to younger, louder couples. And when they finally realized they were being written out, it was too late to rewrite the ending. What stings more, according to sources, is that this wasn't mutual. Andrei reportedly still wanted back in. He believed they had one more run left, another arc, another redemption, another storyline to control. He thought if they gave it time, they'd be asked back for the next spin-off, or tell-all. But Elizabeth? She was done. Emotionally, mentally, strategically. She allegedly told a producer off the record, "It's not worth the stress anymore. Not the edits, not the fighting, not the humiliation." And she meant it. Her behavior behind the scenes, refusing to film emotionally vulnerable scenes, asking for off-limits lists, skipping B-roll shoots, wasn't a negotiation tactic. It was a shutdown. She wasn't trying to reshape her role. She was removing herself completely. But the regret didn't hit both of them equally. Andrei allegedly felt blindsided when the call stopped. No more emails from producers. No invites to group segments. Just silence. That silence, again, was the answer. And now, the couple who once fought for screen time were left watching others take their place. New couples. New feuds. New fans. Meanwhile, Elizabeth and Andrei's brand is quietly disappearing. Not just from the show, but from the fandom entirely. Up next, how separate futures are being negotiated behind the scenes, and why even a quiet exit won't protect them from the next scandal that's already moving through legal channels. There's been no divorce filing, no custody battle, no big explosive exit post. But behind closed doors, everything's already moving like it has. Elizabeth and Andrei may not be legally separated, but insiders say their lives are already split. And not just emotionally. They live in the same house, sleep under the same roof, but act like strangers passing in a hallway. Conversations are short, mostly about bills, kid schedules, or logistics. Friends who've seen them recently say it's like watching coworkers forced to share a cubicle after a company merger went bad. According to those close to the couple, Elizabeth has already started looking into long-term options. Sources say she quietly explored job opportunities outside Florida, including one conversation with a contact on the West Coast. Not a public move yet, but preparation. Backup plans. She's reportedly told her inner circle that if things stay this cold, she's not going to raise her kids in a house full of tension. Andrei, on the other hand, allegedly refuses to talk about moving. He's convinced this is just another rough patch they'll ride out. But that denial, insiders claim, is the very reason things have become impossible to fix. The financial split is already in progress. Joint accounts? Paused. One source said Elizabeth opened a separate account after the $1 million loss and started routing her small brand deals into it. Not to hide money, but to protect it. That word, protection, keeps coming up in these behind-the-scenes conversations. She's not trying to punish him. She's trying to make sure she can stand alone if she has to. Andrei, for his part, reportedly sees every step she takes as an attack, every boundary as a betrayal, which only makes the gap wider. It's no longer about fixing the marriage. It's about surviving the fallout without total collapse. And that fallout is already showing. Friends say the kids feel the shift. They're not seeing extended family as much. Their routines have changed. One insider even claimed Elizabeth's mother stepped in to take over some childcare during shoots because Andrei and Elizabeth couldn't agree on who would handle pickups. That level of separation isn't normal. That's not busy parents juggling life. That's division in real time. The weirdest part? How quiet they're being. No cryptic quotes. No vague social media stories. Just total silence. Which, ironically, is what's making fans suspicious. They're too quiet, too staged, too polished for a couple that's allegedly just focusing on family. People are starting to notice the patterns. Old photos reposted to cover gaps, holiday content with no interaction, captions that feel stiff. And slowly, the fandom is starting to ask the question no one wanted to say out loud. Are they still together? Some still won't believe it. They point to the occasional family pic, the lack of public blow-ups. But insiders say that's exactly the trap. The image is still intact, but the people behind it are already living two separate lives. They eat separately. They sleep separately. They plan separately. The only thing holding them in the same frame is a mortgage and two kids too young to understand why mom and dad stopped laughing together. Coming next, why a secret legal notice may have triggered a final decision, and why the next headline about them might not involve TLC at all. What started as a silent rift has now escalated into something far more permanent. According to the latest insider leaks, Elizabeth and Andrei's split isn't just emotional or financial. It's potentially legal. Rumors are swirling that a lawsuit could be quietly developing, tied to the original $1 million investment loss. Not between Elizabeth and Andrei, but involving third parties, possibly financial backers or advisory firms who feel misled. One source close to the situation said paperwork was reviewed for protection, which almost always means someone's expecting a blowback. And that blowback could drag both of them deeper than they ever expected. But TLC? They've already walked away. According to multiple production sources, it wasn't just difficult filming or story fatigue that ended their run. It was what happened after Elizabeth allegedly threatened to block the network from airing key scenes involving finances and family. That's a direct violation of the creative control clauses most 90-day couples agree to. Even if nothing was filed formally, insiders say TLC took it as a red flag and moved to cut all future contact. Not a pause, not a maybe, a quiet, unofficial lifetime ban. And with the cameras gone, the spotlight faded. For Andrei, that loss hit hardest. He's reportedly been reaching out to minor podcasts, smaller media contacts, anyone willing to give him a segment. But the problem isn't exposure. It's image. He no longer controls the narrative. He can't spin the edits. And with Elizabeth refusing to appear beside him, he looks like a man stranded mid-story, abandoned by the franchise that made him, and by the partner who used to defend him through everything. Meanwhile, Elizabeth's already 2 steps ahead. Insiders say she's been meeting quietly with a digital casting agency, One that handles influencers, scripted roles, and parenting content creators. Not traditional reality TV, but soft brand appearances, branded content, partnerships, maybe a parenting blog-style reboot. Nothing confirmed. But the audition tapes exist, which makes it clear she's not looking back. She's not waiting for TLC to call. She's building something new. Alone. And that's the most chilling part. This ending wasn't loud. It wasn't a cheating scandal or explosive reunion fight. It was a slow fade. A quiet breakup. A marriage that went cold in real time while the world kept scrolling. Andrei didn't lose his wife overnight. He lost her sentence by sentence, silence by silence, until one day she stopped showing up emotionally, and all he had left was a narrative no one wanted to hear anymore. Now, he's standing at the edge of a story he no longer controls, watching the pieces of his identity, husband, father, reality star, slip away. Elizabeth isn't yelling. She's not accusing. She's not filming. She's just done. And that's what makes this ending final. So, the question now isn't whether they're over. It's this. If your entire identity was built for the camera, who are you when it stops rolling?